With Pokemon Legends ZA on the horizon, the hype for Mega Evolutions is at an all-time high. But I don't want to wait until October to try some new Mega Evolutions myself, which is why I turned to one of my favorite Pokemon Emerald ROM hacks, Elite Redux, so they could hook me up. You see, normally Pokemon has 48 different Mega Evolutions, but Elite Redux adds over 100 new ones that you've never seen before, each one cooler than the next, which can make Pokemon that are normally very forgettable and not really useful in battle all juiced up with new designs, stats, moves, and abilities. Like for example, the Ancient Fish Relicanth that can now chase you around on land. But that isn't the only thing that puts the Elite into Redux, because they have a feature that you can turn on where every Pokemon will remain a Mega even outside of battle. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah, we'll be playing through the entirety of this Pokemon game with only Mega Pokemon. And because of the awesome features that we have here, like for example, every Pokemon has 4 abilities, there's also a ton of regional forms and so many other different things that Elite Redux offers, which we will be going over throughout the entire video. So let's have some fun together and stomp the Hoenn region with our Mega Evolution army. The first thing I did when I entered my adventure was scale the difficulty, implement the level cap system so you don't overlevel on the boss fights you need to face, and I also turned on the encounter randomizer so that you have more chance of running into Pokemon with Mega Evolutions early on. After this, I embarked on my adventure and started off in my hometown of Litterroot, where there is a lot of useful stuff, like a person that will tell you everything about the game and its mechanics, plus another trainer that gives you a ton of useful items for the early game. Elite Redux also has its very own menu where you can easily turn on your repel or auto run, which basically makes everything more streamlined. But I also think that it's finally time for us to get our starter Pokemon, because Birch has been screaming in the background for about half an hour. Once we looked in his bag, we couldn't just grab the first Pokemon we wanted. We needed something that had a Mega Evolution in the future, and we ended up getting a pretty good one as we started off with Garchomp, one of the most menacing Pokemon in the entire world. But here's the thing, we just started our Pokemon journey. We don't even have our Mega Ring yet. So until we unlock that, which is after the 4th gym leader, we'll be working with Pokemon that have Mega Evolutions, but just aren't able to fulfill their full potential yet. So after destroying that Zigzagoon, we get our national Pokedex from the professor, and he also wants us to go and beat up his daughter May, who was slacking off on Route 3. So we rolled up on her with my menacing Garchomp behind me, thinking that this was going to be a piece of cake walk in the park. Wait, did my Garchomp just die to a Goomy? I was baffled at first, but then I remembered that every single trainer has max IVs and EVs, and I forgot to put those on my Garchomp. So I opened up the menu, gave him max attack and speed, as well as a jolly nature. You may think this makes us very overpowered, and while in the early game that is in fact the case, the moment we battle Watson, we'll be facing fully evolved Pokemon ourselves, which will level the playing field, because they will also all have great moves, stats, and abilities. Speaking of abilities, Pokemon do indeed have 4 of them, and while 3 of them may be permanent, you can always change your first one to 2 different ones. And you may also not recognize any of these abilities, because Elite Redux added in like 100 or more custom ones. For example, my Garchomp has Keen Edge, which will boost the power of slashing moves by 30%. He also has Hyper Aggressive, which means every single move would hit twice, but the second hit only does 25% damage. He also has Speed Force, which will make contact moves use 20% of its speed stat to do more damage, and also Rough Skin, so if he gets hit, the enemy will lose 1/8 of its maximum HP. So this Landshark is going to be like a blade that slides through butter. With all of its stats ready, I returned to May and destroyed Torchic with Scorching Sands, and the same went for her Goomy. After this, I went back to Oldale Town where I checked out the Pokemart, where you can indeed buy a ton of these new regional forms already, but you need battle points to buy them, which we can only get after winning fights. I then went over to the Pokemon Center where Nurse Joy would not only heal my Pokemon, but also give me a Dex Nav. And the good thing about this is that every Pokemon is immediately available on the Dex Nav, so I don't have to search around for them in order to build my team. So I immediately started catching on Route 1, where I found a Scyther, Aerodactyl, and Alakazam, who all already have existing Mega forms, but also a Frozlass, Hitmonchan, Kingler, and Empoleon, who have new forms that will blow you away once you see them. My first regional form here was a Cleffa, which is now a rock type and will eventually have a Mega Clefable form that we'll be able to use. Some of these also had insane abilities like Soul Eater, which heals your HP for 25% if you knock out a Pokemon, Blitzboxer plus Precise Fist to give punching type moves a +1 priority and a +1 crit chance, and on top of that they get 5 times the secondary effect chance. So for example, Thunder Punch would have a way higher chance at paralyzing the opponent than usual. There's so many other cool abilities, but I'm not going to be talking about all of them because then this video will be like 3 hours long. Let me just put it like this: it's very fun to play around with them. I then went back to Oldale Town because nearly every single town and city has new encounter patches, and here I was able to get Swablu, Ekans, Cutiefly, Wooper, Scraggy, Chimchar, Shinx, Choodle, a fire-water regional form of Primplup, and finally the Pokemon we all want a Mega Evolution for, Flygon. Speaking of that, what would you like to see as a new Mega Evolution in Pokemon Legends ZA? I'd love to see like a Spinda that turns into a Beyblade. I think that would be pretty funny and cool. After this, I grabbed a regional form of Turtwig, which is now a fairy flying type, from the shop, and ended up battling my first youngster on the next route. Considering he had Pokemon like Yungoos and Poochyena, I thought we were going to make him cry easily, but I was the one who was crying, because my team of mega potential Pokemon got their asses kicked, and there was one sole reason for that: I didn't have the right moves on them. Luckily, Elite Redux will always dap you up no matter what. You can just go into the Pokemon menu and go through every single move your Pokemon can learn and just give it to them. Because we also get every single battle item, I decided to give everybody a Life Orb to make it easier and make them do more damage, and now that we were fully prepared, the youngster stood no chance as the entire round was littered with his knocked out Pokemon. Further along this route, I found a Torchic trapped inside of a Pokeball, so I sent it to my PC for later use. And while all of that may be awesome, it's not as awesome as today's sponsor, Zen Market, a longtime partner of the channel. They're the website if you want anything shipped from Japan, which can normally get pretty tricky, but they make it super easy. For example, Pokemon cards are all the craze right now, and I personally don't really like where the pricing is going. But a perfect cheaper alternative are Japanese Pokemon cards, and with Zen Market's system, you can easily ship those over to yourself without any hassle. And the way to do this is incredibly easy. You just look for the product you're searching for, then just copy and paste that link on the Zen Market website, and then you can just buy it from there. And they also have a lot of Japanese included stores like Rakuten, Yahoo Japan, Amazon Japan, and so much more. But let's just say you want to order a ton of stuff on different days. Well, Zen Market offers a 60-day free storage period, so all your items can be stored and sent out at the same time. And if you do end up running into any problems, Zen Market's customer support is top-notch with over 19 languages to help you out with. They also make sure your packages are always secured, so problems like these will rarely happen, which you can easily see from the other 2 million plus users worldwide who trust Zen Market completely. And once you get to the checkout, they have tons of payment methods to make it easier for you, and if you use promo code ZWIGGO, we'll also give you 1,000 extra Zen points at the end, which you can use to get a discount on your shipping. So what are you waiting for? Go on Zen Market right now and order that Japanese exclusive merch you always wanted. Once again, a huge thank you to Zen Market for sponsoring today's video, and let's get right back into the video. Further in our sights was Petalburg City, where we captured more Pokemon like Numel, Grotle, and Slacking, and got told by my dad that we were a weakling that could never stand up to him. This fired up the ambition in me to strive for the goal of beating my father in a one-on-one battle. And who better to practice on than a low-life pirate in the woods? He only had 3 Pokemon, which meant I clicked Garchomp's Earthquake 3 times and ended up winning. I then followed the man we just saved to Rustboro, where I captured a Impidimp and barged into Roxanne's gym minutes after. Now, Roxanne might be prepared to deal with kids that walking with Zigzagoons or Wurmples, but she has never seen an early game team like this before. So when I threw out my Empoleon, she started shaking in her boots. Yes, her Galarian Sunfisk did set up some stealth rocks, but that allowed me to set up a nasty plot and one-shot it with Surf the turn after. Her Nosepass was up next, who could always survive a hit with Sturdy, and so proceeded to use Thunder Wave and Earth Power to deal some damage and paralyze my Penguin. Now that we can't outspeed anything anymore, her Stonejourner can pick me off, and then swapped into Hitmonchan to hit the Drain Punch Mach Punch combo, which also wasn't enough, so we ended up being knocked out. We did bring it down into red health, so I swapped in Scyther, took half of my health due to stealth rock damage and killed it with quick attack. We then one-shot her incoming Almora and got blasted away by a gem missile. But since this was our last team member, all we needed was a Garchomp's Earthquake to win my very first gym badge. After heading outside and seeing people chasing after pirates yet again, we don't bother chasing after them this time and instead head to a new area called Sea Spray Cave. Inside we captured 2 new ghost types, Houndour and Shuppet, and as I headed further into the cave, everything started to become chilly. And the worst thing of all, a dugong laughed at me so hard because we were such a weakling that I just had to run out of that cave crying, which was instantly met with happiness on the next round because I found my favorite Pokemon Swampert inside of the grass and immediately captured it. But that wasn't the only thing I got here. I also found a Croconaw, Shelgon, and 3 new regional forms, the Water Psychic type Serena, the Fairy Dragon Zweilous, and the Fighting Dark type Kadabra that will smack you with a club. Moving on to Rusturf Tunnel where I captured a Machoke and choked out a pirate who was way too busy stealing suitcases and seagulls. Once everything was brought back to the right owners, we'd get a new mission from the mayor to deliver a letter to his son on Dewford Island. But before I did that, I wanted to change around my team as much as possible, so I evolved Cleffa into its final form Clefable, and Turtwig into Groudle while adding Croconaw, Flygon, and Swampert to the team as well. With these changes, I tried to leave Rustboro, but I got ambushed at the end by May, who wanted revenge. She's already buffed up her team quite a bit since last time, but I promise that we won't be getting destroyed by a Goomy again anytime soon. She lit off with a Swellow, which I would have expected to use a Flame Orb with like Facade or something, but instead it blew my Swampert's eardrums with a Boom Burst and nearly killed me, but we were able to counter back with an Ice Punch, which was able to one-shot. Next up was Serena, so I swapped in my Groudle and used Return, which turned into a Flying type move due to my ability Aerialate. And because Serena is now part Fighting type as well, we easily one-shot it due to the 4x super effectiveness, which is something her Starmie didn't really like to see as it went on a killing spree, shocking my Groudle and freezing my Flygon before having to swap in Clefable, who could tank a Water Gem boosted Hydro Pump due to its Solid Rock ability that weakens it, so we could then use Dark Pulse to send Starmie packing. We hit another run on Runerigus before dying to Shadow Claw and then proceed to kill it with 2 more Aqua Jets from Croconaw. We also do decent damage on the worst starter Pokemon in Gen 3, Combuskin, before dying to a not very effective Blaze Kick. But not to worry, we still have Zweilous in the back who can hit a Dragon Pulse and win the battle against May. As a reward for beating her, she takes me straight to Mr. Briney's house, who sails me to Dewford. As we're done docking, I immediately check out the town and enter the newly placed patches of grass, which held a Toucannon, Baneri, and regional form of Machoke, which is now Dragon Fighting type. There's also an entire new path that leads to the Dewford Manor, and inside and outside we ended up finding a regional form of Larvitar, which is now a Fire Rock type, plus a Nidoking, Trubbish, and Shroomish. Next up on our list was Granite Cave, where we would not only find stones, but also a Slowbro. Oh, and one of the best trainers of all time, Steven Stone, who just wanted the battle to see how strong we were. He even led off with a Metang that would only hit my Swampert with bullet punches, and because we have the stamina ability, our defense got buffed every single turn because of that. I knew we were going to survive a ton more hits, so I started clicking Bulk Up until we were at +6. Then I clicked Waterfall, which in the end didn't even take it out because it's probably holding an Eviolite, and when I tried to finish it off, he swapped out into Delmise, who would lash me with a 4x super effective Power Whip, which Swampert ate up like a champ and allowed us to counter back with an Ice Punch to kill. The same went for Cradily. From there on out, I spammed Waterfall and Earthquake to take down Heatmore, Dugtrio, Lycanroc, and Metang for the perfect Swampert sweep. We then hand over the letter, get a Meltan as our reward, and part ways with each other. But I can already feel a special bond building with Steven, as this probably won't be the last we see of him. We'd have to challenge the second gym next, so I started rebuilding my team. So evolving Cutiefly into Ribombee and Impidimp into Morgrem was natural. Each one of them had some great abilities, but Morgrem with Scare, Intimidate, Tangling Hair, and Prankster was just meant to be the most annoying Pokemon ever. I also added Serena and Toucannon to the team, who could certainly dish out some insane hits with Momentum, Sheer Force, Flock, and Skill Link. Just to put it into perspective, with Skill Link, every single multi-hitting move would always hit 5 times. Then, with Flock, my flying type moves would also get a boost to either 20 or 50%. And Peck has been changed to a multi multi-hitting move in this game, which can hit 5 times to do major damage. On top of this, we also add sheer force for even more power, and I don't think Brawly can stand a chance. That's why he probably ran away to the museum to hide amongst the Team Aqua Grunts. But we spotted him anyway and sent him back to his job, where we would 1v1 him in a YouTuber boxing match ring. And it wasn't a fair game from the start. He pulled out cheap tactics, boosting his Monferno's attack by 80% straight away, which would make it a big offensive threat. However, my Serena was way too fast and I clicked Psychokinetic Slam, which made him chicken out and swap his Hariyama into a big Psychokinetic Slam that would kill it in one hit. Next one out was Lucario, so I swapped into Grotle thinking it would go for a fighting type move like Aura Sphere. But I have no idea why I thought that, because it clicked Flash Cannon and blasted me back to the start. So I brought in my Alakazam, who could one-shot it with Aura Sphere, just like his very own Kadabra. His water type Monferno then slapped me real cute, which forced me back into his biggest nightmare, Serena, who could play roughly 2 times, which would ring the bell, and gave me the prized Knuckle badge as I won my first ever fist fight. And with a new gym badge comes a new team, so I started evolving and changing again. This got me the regional form of Houndoom, but also Breloom, Quagsire, and Luxray. I took these younglings on a trip to the museum where we would beat up even more Team Aqua Grunts and even have a showdown with their captain Archie. This was a triple gauntlet battle where we had to face 3 different fights without healing, and that might sound hard, but when you take into consideration that we have a toxic boosted Breloom, everything starts to run a lot more smoothly, as we can now go out and find the One Piece to become the master of all pirates. Cause believe me, Archie ain't gonna cut it. Oh, and we also delivered a suitcase to some smart sciencey guy. After this, I captured a regular Pupitar on the next route and started preparing my team for the fight against May. By evolving my Grotle into this big cloudy rainbow island, but also Machoke into the Dragon Lord Machamp, and the new regional form of Pupitar also joined the team combined with Corviknight. Now let's show May the power of these boys and gals. Starting off by destroying her Swallow with a return from Torterra. Yes, we might have been turned into a block of ice because of Starmie, but we can counter back with Luxray's Supercell Slam. Plus, we also get burned due to our own Life Orb, because my beautiful electric lion here has the Guts ability. We're not gonna use it though, because I swap out into Serena for Blaziken and start spamming Psychokinetic Slam until the Fighting Chicken and Long-Legged Plant are bulldozed. I'm also able to break her Mimikyu's disguise before falling to a Shadow Claw, which allows me to bring in Corviknight, set up a nasty plot, and kill it with Flash Cannon. Her final team member was a Vikavolt, and I thought it was going to outspeed, but instead I got shocked out of the sky. So instead I had to fling some rocks at it with Pupitar until this bug was also squashed. This makes May jump on her bike and ride off into the sunset so we can reach Mauville City, a place of innovation, electricity, and also Wally, who's ready for an ass whooping. So I added Bannet, Blaziken, Altaria, and Slacking to the squad and rolled up on him like a droidica in Star Wars. This green-haired kid thought he could catch me off guard with a fake out from his Obstagoon, but little did he know that this would activate my Blaziken speed boost ability, which would allow me to outspeed and kill it with a 1-inch punch. From there on out, I also hit one on the incoming Garchomp and even managed to burn it with my Flame Body. This allowed me to live yet another hit and counter back with one more punch, which sent it flying. But because we only had 1 HP left and his Ruskin ability, we also go down on this turn. Next one out is Armarouge, who somehow one-shots my Altaria with its cannon, despite being not very effective by the way, but it was no match for my Slacking's return. Following up was his regional Kingambit, a fighting steel type, with an ability that could make any Pokemon's move miss, which was pretty terrible for my Banette as it missed a fake out and ended up dying to just 2 sword slashes. So Machamp does what Machamp does best, kick it in the face, which it also tried to do to Gardevoir, but it had Queenly Majesty, which blocks priority moves. And you already guessed what happens next. We got Psychicked into oblivion. But Corviknight's Flash Cannon could easily take care of it. Then we used one more Giant Gale to blow away his Roserade, so him and his uncle would go back home and we could enter Watson's gym. As we all know, this man loves his electric types, and you can see that by the electric terrain his Pincurchin sets up at the start. But this spiky boy was pretty scared of my punches, because when I tried to hit it with a second one, he all of a sudden brought in the new Dedenne evolution, Arashin, who could tank a Drain Punch but would not survive another Mach Punch on top of that. Next up was his Kilowattrel, so I went into my Quagsire thinking I could easily tank 2 attacks, but that was not the case, cause Hurricanes hit like a truck. So once my blue oblivious silly guy got blown away, I sent out Garchomp and killed it with Rock Slide. I also hit a super effective Ice-type secret power on the incoming Rotom Mo, but he'd still be able to shred me with a Freezy Frost. So I sent out Blaziken to heat things up and set up a Swords Dance to boost my attack by 2 stages, and also use my speed boost ability to outspeed the next turn and kill with Blaze Kick. And it seems like Watson is a really big fan of new evolutions, cause his next choice was Morpeko, who still couldn't survive a 1-inch punch. The last 2 team members Pincurchin and a new form of Mega Magnezone also got shattered into a million pieces, and once we put them back together, we created the Dynamo badge and got ourselves a free Ampharos. But I wasn't satisfied with only an Ampharos, so I went on a catching spree on all of the surrounding routes, as we captured Relicanth, Nincada, Grovyle, Gyarados, and a Water-type Monferno to boost the squad depth. I tried to make my way over to Fiery Path and Mount Chimney, but a hiker pulled out an entire backpack of bombs disguised as golems and made them explode all over my team. Somehow we were able to survive this attack, reported it to the police, and went back to capture more Pokemon, including Electrike, Medicham, Beldum, and the new Axe form of Aegislash that is traded in its steel typing for a fighting one. Following up, we reached Fall Arbor Town, where May informed me that one of the scientists here was kidnapped by an evil team and taken to Meteor Falls for information. Since the police are useless around here, it's up to us 10-year-olds to save the day again, and what better way to do it than by building a new team. So I ended up getting a Metagross, Shedinja, Infernape, Aerodactyl, and Sceptile to the squad so we could team up with May and dismantle Courtney and her plans. I decided to take out her side of the field first, as we teamed up with my partner Starmie to use Stone Edge and Hydro Pump to finish off Ninetales and Houndoom. Then we'd start on the other side where we'd obliterate Excadrill and Carnivine, and from there on out, Sceptile and Shedinja could finish off the last 2 Pokemon Arbok and Weezing easily. But we were too late. Team Magma have already acquired the meteorite they need, which they're going to try and use to make a volcano explode, and Team Aqua is also not a big fan of this. So for once, we'll be teaming up with these seawater drinking morons to try and cripple Team Magma before they can go too far. So I head to the top of the volcano to confront Maxi. I decide to lead with my Metagross, who can hit a Psychokinetic Slam, which crushes his Crobat, but Hydreigon is here to avenge his fallen teammate with a Dark Pulse. But not to worry, we have our own Dragon-type Sceptile who can use Scale Shot to snipe it out of the air. Next on out is a Lycanroc, and we use Quick Attack to break its Focus Sash and end up falling to our own Life Orb damage. So I send out my Aerodactyl and use Tectonic Fangs to eat it up like a snack. Then we get turned back into a fossil by a Draco Meteor from Naganadel, so I bring in Swampert and use 2 Ice Punches to send it back into Ultra Space while surviving 2 Draco Meteors in the process as well. After this, I use Waterfall to break through Camerup's defenses and hit 1 more Ice Punch on Brood Bonnet before dying to Bullet Seed. But this fungus gets turned into a stew by Infernape's 1-inch punch. With the volcano saved, we hike down, capture a Rillaboom, and proceed to a lava-rich town where we can take on Flannery, which was going to require new team members. So I grabbed my favorite Pokemon in the entirety of Elite Redux, the new regional form of Infernape that looks way too much like Luffy, plus I also added Relicanth and Gyarados for that extra water and rock type coverage. We all know Flannery as a hothead, and her first Pokemon Tortemple proves that by setting up the sun. So I just started off by crippling her entire team and boosting mine with my Quagsara's Rain Dance. At the perfect time as well, might I add, because this Tortemple went for Solar Beam, which would have one-shotted me. And the turn after, I wasn't sure that I was going to one-shot it, so I swapped out into Sceptile to tank it. I then went into my Aerodactyl, who was still burned from the fight before, which didn't help at all, but it did scare away the big turtle and allowed me to take down Hisuian Typhlosion and Ogerpon. I also sinked my teeth into her Ox's ass, and then I got taken out, so I had to swap in Sceptile and use Skill Shot, which sent it back to the ranch where it belongs. Next up was Mega Charizard, and not the X or Y variant we know and love. The Dynamax form that in this game works as a third Mega, but all we needed was 5 Skill Shots to bring the giant down. But her Flareon turned out to be more of a threat than I thought, as it took me down with Flare Blitz, so I had to bring in Quagsire and use Rain Dance again until we took it down with a couple of Aqua Tails. Then Tortemple came back out as her final team member, so I swapped in Relicanth and used Rain Dance, but ended up being logged because of my Choice Band, which I didn't think of. So I swapped back out into Gyarados, who was burned as well, and hit 2 Wave Crashes before dying to Solar Beam too. But I still had 2 Pokemon left, so I brought out Infernape, used Torrent Fist, and claimed my Heat Badge. Now after stepping outside, I knew it was nearly time for me me to confront my dad. But May told me to make a quick stop at the desert where we could use our Go goggles to capture new Pokemon and even maybe find a special temple. And she was right, I had some great finds here like Blastoise and Hatterene, and once I entered that special temple, I even found a Mega Pokemon in the wild. Not gonna lie, I had no idea that was possible, but they seem to be extremely rare because this is the only one I found in my entire playthrough. And it was also a new one that was never seen before, Ursaluna, who seemed ready to tear everything to shreds with its claws. Oh, and its awesome ability combination of Guts, Fluffy, Predator, and Contempt. With this thing by my side, I traveled back to my father's town with confidence. And while he was proud that we had made it this far, he was still underestimating me and even gave me a Mega Bracelet before our fight. So now we can finally bring out our true power, as we'll only be using our Pokemon's full potential. For this fight, for example, I added Relicanth with Marine Apex, Impenetrable, Reckless, and Primal Armor, which makes him incredibly resistant against super effective damage as well as status moves, but also boosts his damage against other water-type Pokemon and recall damage moves. Medicham with Pure Power, Combat Specialist, Enlightened, and Technician can literally hit anyone into the stratosphere. Yes, even the heaviest Pokemon, Cosmoem. I bet you did not know that was the heaviest Pokemon. Yeah, it surprised me too. We also get Lopunny with Scrappy, Limber, Fur Coat, and Striker, Salamence with Beast Boost, Reckless, Aerialate, and Predator, and this beautiful Mega Flygon with Sandforce, Dragonfly, Tinted Lens, and Desert Spirit. So let's take this team and see what happens if we don't get held back by our father. First up was my Ursaluna against his Smeargle, so I boosted my attack with Swords Dance. Yes, this allowed him to set up Stealth Rocks, but that's something I'm not really too worried about anymore. From there on out, I hit 2 times with Hammer Arm and took down the Smeargle. Norman just witnessed my Mega Pokemon's power, so he wanted to show off his own as well, and threw out his Mega Snorlax with the big tree on his belly. He thought he was going to sweep me because he tried to set up a belly drum. Little did he know that a single Hammer Arm would send it back to the graveyard. His Meloetta then finally got a hit in with Jump Kick, but it still wasn't enough, and the Thrash made it dash. Porygon Z came out next, but we're locked in, and this thing is now part Ghost type. So our attack gets negated, and we get taken out by Dark Pulse. Plus, it outsped my Salamence and also killed me in one shot. I never thought a Porygon Z was going to give me trouble, so I swapped in Lopunny instead, and used Fake Out, which could only hit because of my Scrappy ability, to unveil that it was never a Porygon at all, it was a Hisuian Zoroark pulling the strings. So with one more high jump kick, it got taken out, and then the real Porygon Z showed its face, using Technoblast to blow a hole into my bunny, which made me send out Flygon, who just couldn't get a move off either and died. So I sent out Medicham instead, and was very surprised to see that a Fake Out, a 40 base power move, finished off this Porygon in one hit. That just goes on to show how broken this thing is. On top of that, we also high jump kicked his final Pokemon, the Dunsparce, which ended the battle of the generations as I defeated my father and earned the Balance Badge. My father really put up a fight, which makes me respect him a little bit more, and I can see how proud he really is of me. That's why he even gives me a Kangaskhan to resemble our bond together. But our beautiful moment gets interrupted by the next door neighbor who wants me to have the HM for Surf to look for his son Wally. I say no problem and head out immediately, but not to find his son, to buy a ton of Megastones at the Pokemart, allowing me to unlock so many new regional form Megas, like Alakazam the Mob Boss with Minion Control, Cheap Tactics, Mystic Power, and Nocturnal. This means his move will hit an extra time for each healthy party member. So if you lead with him, he can hit up to 6 times with any move. Plus, each move gains stat power, and every single Dark type move gets boosted by 25% as well. And on top of all this, every time he gets switched in, he'll hit the opponent with a free scratch, which can now hit up to 6 times. And also gains the stat bonus. I mean, like, how can anybody even stand up to this thing? We also have our new Empoleon with Frostburn, Parental Bond, Cryomancy, and Levitate. Tyranitar with Evaporate, Primal Armor, Furnace, and Molten Down. Houndoom with Blood Prince, Haunted Spirit, Contrary, and Purgatory. Clefable is rocking Rocky Payload, Solid Rock, Dazzling, and Moon Spirit. And finally, Gyarados with Hyper Aggressive, Aerialist, Beast Boost, and Mold Breaker. I honestly feel really bad for the next opponent I'm going to be facing. Luckily, it's a very strong one with Steven Stone back on Route 118. The battle commences with my Alakazam against his Steelix, and we immediately hit the 6 scratches. Then I use Aura Sphere to blast it away and bring out the next Pokemon, Mega Skarmory. I couldn't even find out what this thing's typing was because it died so fast to 2 hits of Dark Pulse. Now he probably technically could have swept here, but I don't want to give Alakazam all the spotlight, so I swapped out into Gyarados once Aegislash hit the field. Yes, we might have taken a lot of damage from a Sacred Sword, but that doesn't matter, because we can rip and tear it apart. Which is a hard thing to do with a Sword and Shield, but Gyarados can get it done. And the same would probably go for his Metagross, but I decided to go into Tyranitar instead and hit a Magma Storm, which it tanked like a boss. It then followed up with another attack, and that ended up being my downfall. I then brought in my Houndoom, and he just got killed by a single bullet punch. Like, he is a glass cannon that can't survive anything. But not to worry, we still had Empoleon who could kill with a Flame Burst, which is now a 40 base power special attacking priority move, by the way. At this point, I didn't feel like this fight was going as it was supposed to, so I brought out Alakazam again and used Aura Sphere and Dark Pulse to finish off Delmise and Magcargo so that we could leave Steven in the dust and go back on our gym journey. And so my sights were set on Fortree City, which was blocked off by some Team Aqua goons. So I had to take out their raid on the local Weather Institute, which meant trying out more megas like Frostlass, Luxray, this insane looking Arbok, but also Torterra, who has traded in its beautiful shield for a more thundercloudy one, Kingler, who has grown a beard from snapping so many people in half, and finally the Dancer Serena, who turns from a physical to a special attacker. So let's take them out for a spin on Shelly. First up was her Ariados, which got destroyed by a single triple dive from Kingler. Meganium would then be poisoned by my Arbok's jabs. Then her big school of Wishiwashis would survive a Supercell Slam from Luxray and dip out into Absol with Flip Turn. So I swapped in Serena and used its beautiful, alluring voice to make it deaf. We did the same to Inteleon and then swapped into my Torterra, who could use her Thundercloud to electrocute Bruxish. We hit one more Supercell Slam on Wishiwashi, and just like that, the Weather Institute is saved and we get a stupid cast form as our reward. I release it back into the wild straight away and build a new team of Megas for the upcoming fight with May. This one included Quagsire, who now has a very nice mustache, the wonderful Ribombee, who could win any Pokemon contest, Garchomp, who will be slashing through the competition, and finally Sceptile, who can apparently launch his Christmas tree ass at the opponents. After capturing one more Pignite, I walked over the bridge and faced May again. Hear me out, I sent out Sceptile against her Swallow because I thought I still had the Skill Link ability, which was not the case, so I ended up dying due to a Hurricane because I only hit 2 times. If I still had Skill Link, it would have certainly killed. So I brought out Garchomp after and just finished it off with a Dragon Claw. For Starmie, I swapped in Frostlass and set up the Hail, which would activate my Slush Rush ability and allow me to outspeed probably everything. We also tanked a Diamond Storm before taking it out with a Sheer Cold, which is now not a one-hit KO move anymore. Because of that KO, we also got some of our HP back, which let me use Raging Souls on the incoming Golurk to also one-shot it. I then brought out Quagsire against her Mega Blaziken, and this was the perfect matchup. It basically could not hit me, and we just had to hit 2 Aqua Tails to make it go down. Once that was done, we also blasted away Goodra with Ribombee's Pixie Beam and used another Sheer Cold from Frostlass to turn Torterra into an Ice Cube and make it fall to the ground. But soon we'll be soaring into the skies ourselves because May hands me the HM for Fly, which we'll be able to use after Winona. So I walked up to Fortree City to buy more Mega Stones, blew up some Kecleons with Steven, and captured a Quaxley in the water too. From there on out, I could start team building for Winona, with Kangaskhan that had Tough Claws, Parental Bond, Scrappy, and Avenger, Aerodactyl with Speed Force, Fossilized, Rockhead, and Tough Claws, regular Tyranitar had Violent Rush, Strong Jaw, Juggernaut, and Primal Armor, Ampharos became a powerhouse with Overwhelm, Fluffy, Overcharge, and Transistor, Hatterene turned into a god, literally, it had Raging Goddess, Pixelate, Magic Pounds, and Psychic Mind, and last but not least, Mega Slowbro with Analytic, Regenerator, Armor Tail, and Shell Armor as my tank that could hold the front line for as long as needed. I mean, literally, he's starting out as my first Pokemon together with Tyranitar against his double battle with Rotom and Enamorus. The problem here is that they set up a Tailwind with one of their abilities, which almost always makes them go first. However, because we have 2 bulky boys here, we can survive both of their hits and one-shot the Enamorus with a Jagged Fangs and deal okay damage with an Expanding Force on Rotom. The next turn doesn't go as good for me as my Tyranitar gets flinched and Slowbro gets taken out, but this does allow me to bring in Aerodactyl and use a Cell Rock to make that fan go up in flames. Hisuian Braviary just can't do enough damage, and Tyranitar is still on the field and proceeds to eat it for breakfast with Jagged Fangs. Her next 2 team members, Dragonite and Corviknight, can finally put an end to my Tyranitar's carnage damage, and the big dragon also survives in a Cell Rock because of its multi-scale ability. I thought I was going to take it out with another one the next turn once I brought out Luxray, but that wasn't the case as we get outsped with Extreme Speed, which has higher priority. But we do nearly bring down Corviknight with a Supercell Slam as it's only left with 1 HP. So I send out Ampharos and use Double Edge and Parabolic Charge to leave her with only one Pokemon, Mega Oricorio. And I actually think it's pretty cool that it turns white because it normally has so many colors, so it's like they all combined and just turned white. But not even a Mega could save this mediocre bird as Ampharos launches a Draco Meteor right in its face, which left Winona without any Pokemon and makes me receive the Feather Badge. Plus, we also get a free Toucanonite which we can use to Mega Evolve him. In the next few routes, there was only one Pokemon that really caught my eye for a Mega Evolution, and that was Alcremie. And besides that, nothing really happened outside of Lilycove where we had to battle May, which meant we had to change the entire team up again. This time adding Toucanon with Sturdy, Steel Barrel, Iron Barrage, and Pyro Shells, and since he's now also part Steel type, he really turned himself into a machine of war. We also had 2 other new Megas join the team, Emboar with Flame Shield, Hellblaze, Brute Force, and Violent Rush, which makes him like a fast bulldozer that loves to use recall moves. We also had Roserade with the Thornlash, who was rocking Rose Garden, Equinox, Merciless, and Long Reach. Because we beat Steven not that long ago, I also had to add his Mega Pokemon Metagross to my team, and last but not least, the best Pokemon that has ever graced the face of the earth, Swampert. With these, I got ready for my shopping date with May, who didn't realize we weren't going to be shopping at all, as this fight would be the breaking point to her entire Pokemon journey. The tragedy started with my Kangaskhan using Fake Out and Double Hit to take down Vikavolt. Emboar would then Flare Blitz Serena. Metagross would explode all over her Starmie, sending her to the grave. The battle of the starters was also decided very quickly with a single Jet Punch from Swampert doing the trick. And I wish I could say the same for her final 2 Pokemon Swallow and Mimikyu, but they also fell to my large fists. From here on out, May decided to help her dad with Pokemon research and totally abandoned being a trainer. From starting off so promising, taking me out with just a Gumi, to now being a shell of her former self. But we can't let this affect ourselves. We need to push through, because Team Aqua is making a move on Mount Pyre to steal the blue orb. So I head over there to stop them and also capture a Magneton along the way, but we were already too late. Both orbs have been stolen, but we do have one clue, a Team Magma emblem that was dropped from one of the grunts. And where would their base be? I could only think of one spot, inside of a volcano. So I went in without hesitation, took out all of his grunts and even 2 admins by adding Mega Blastoise, Altaria, and Manectric to my team. Once I reached the end of the volcano, however, it was already too late. He just spawned in Groudon, but I am going to throw Maxie into this pool of lava if he doesn't stop messing with the God of Land. So I showed him that we mean business by throwing out my Blaziken and taking on his Naganadel with 2 high jump kicks. With our speed boost, we can also bring down Dugtrio to its Focus Sash before falling to a Stone Edge. Then I used Ash's secret move by using an electric type move on a ground type, which would normally never work, but anime logic seemed to be at my side on this one. I also hit another one on Groudon before having to swap out into Blastoise and blasting it with a Hydro Cannon. Then for some reason I swapped into Toucanon, who got destroyed by his Mega Camerupt. That honestly might be one of the worst plays I've made in my life, but at least we did like half of his health with a Techno Blast. Roserade then said sayonara with a Leaf Storm. Altaria tanked a Flash Cannon from Hydreigon and killed it with Pixie Beam, and also hit one on the final Pokemon Brood Bonnet before dying. From there on out, I used Blastoise's Aura Sphere, blast us off all the way to Slateport City to witness some submarine thievery. I didn't have the TM for dive yet, so I couldn't really go after them. So instead, I grabbed a few more encounters, like a little Poplio and the genetic-created monstrosity Mewtwo, who even has 2 Mega Evolutions. So I'm sure he'll come in handy at some point. I then got a call from Steven Stone, who relayed to me the location of the Team Aqua hideout. So I worked my magic, and a few minutes later, the entire thing went up in flames. But Archie and some of his crew were able to escape to the seafloor cavern with the boat. And the only way we're going to be chasing after them is with DHM for dive, which we can only get once we defeat Tate and Liza in Moss Deep. So let's waste no time and sail over there. The thing about Tate and Liza is that they're probably the most interesting gym leaders in the entire game. Not only do they work as a perfect double battle, they also have the inverted type chart working in their battle, which means every not very effective move will now be super effective and the other way around. They also have an incredibly slow team because of their tree Trick Room strategy, so I had to build a specific team if I wanted to win this, which took quite a long time. I had to build different teams, try different strategies, but it just didn't end up working out for me. I tried out Mega Corviknight, Mega Grimmsnarl, and even Aegislash, but none of them seemed to be working. So in the end, I opted to go with Mega Mewtwo Y, Machamp, Relicanth, Primarina, Ursaluna, and Garbodor. With that team, I challenged them again for like the 20th time before I could actually win. As they start off with Hoopa and Mr. Rime, I lead with Mega Mewtwo Y and Machamp. And Mewtwo turned out to be pretty useless as he got ganged up on and fainted on the first turn. But Machamp did take down Hoopa with a single Drain Punch. Then I swapped in Ursaluna, who's already slow, so maybe he'll be able to outspeed. But unfortunately, he wasn't slower than a Mega Hatterene either. But he was able to survive an Expanding Force and Mystical Fire, so both of my team members could connect their Hammer Arms and Dynamic Punches to wipe our opponent's field fully. Next out was Slowking combined with Farigiraf, and even though my Ursaluna's speed got lowered, it still gets outsped and killed with a Psycho Boost. But not to worry, we just needed one Dynamic Punch to take that Giraffe back to the zoo. Their last Pokemon was a Galarian Darmanitan, which was kind of hard to take down, because him combined with Slowking were easily able to overpower my Machamp, but also Relicanth, all while we were doing chip damage every single turn. But eventually, Garbodor was able to Drain Punch Slowking, which killed it and left them with only one Pokemon. I then swapped in my Mega Primarina and used Alluring Voice to end off, in my experience, the hardest battle in the entirety of Elite Redux. Now that we have the Mind Badge, it's time to acquire just one more thing, DHM for Dive, but Steven is not home. He's currently taking care of business at the Moss Deep Space Center because Maxie all of a sudden has interest in rocket fuel. Does he want to make Groudon fly into space? I don't know, but I'm not going to ask questions. We're here to take them down. This time, I used my Mega Quaquaval, Infernape, and Aegislash, combined with Steven's Iron Treads, Iron Voca, and Metagross. But it wasn't going to be easy, because we were up against a Primal Groudon and a big Clodsire. And while they might have brought both of them down to a slither of health, it didn't end up being enough as they doubled up with Precipice Blades and Lance Wrath to make us lose this matchup. But not to worry, because once our next two Pokemon, Infernape and Metagross, came out, we switched to Tides, by making them go into Brood Bonnet and everybody's competitive nightmare, Mega Incineroar. Not that any of that mattered, because 2 turns later, they both got punched in the face and fainted. Yes, Maxie's Mega Camera might have melted down our friend's Metagross, but victory was assured when he brought out his Voca and used Alluring Voice to take down Zygarde and Camerupt. And so, foiling the plan of Maxie to turn Groudon into an astronaut, and also getting RHM for Dive so we can chase after Archie. And I did that with 2 awesome new team members, the Drummer Man Rillaboom and the All-Seeing God Hydreigon. We then went on our diving mission, entered the seafloor cavern, completed a puzzle that was changed from the original, so it took way longer than expected, and then we see Pirate wake up Big Fish to use it against me in battle. Luckily, I started off with my Gorilla, who could easily set up the grassy terrain with its Seed Sower and overpower one of the strongest legendary Pokemon ever with an Yggdrasil Force, followed up with a Grassy Glide. Next up was the Juicy Bug Buzzwole, so I tried to crack out with my Corviknight, but ended up getting one-shotted by Drain Punch. But not to worry, the all-seeing Hydreigon could hit it with a Pixie Beam and send his steroid-juiced ass back to the gym. The same went for Mega Sharpedo, even though it was able to hit me with an Iron Fangs. And we all know how scary Dracovish is, which was no different here as it killed me with a Fish's Rend. But we all know Fish's Rend does no damage if it goes second, so I brought in Rillaboom and used Grassy Glide 2 times to take it out. The same went for Electros, but that only needed 1. And his last Pokemon was a Go-Goat. Very weird to see this on Archie's team, but the perfect victim for my Aegislash's first kill, as I kept on spamming Sacred Sword until we became the victor. From there on out, Kyogre was released and went to fight Groudon somewhere in Satupolis City. But by the time we got there, a snake was already shouting at the 2, which meant the day was already saved without our help. So I went back into the water to capture a few more Pokemon before having to challenge Wallace and Juan. Those ended up being Oricorio, Skeledirge, and Decidueye. And the last one I I also immediately used on my team. His Mega looked like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. If I'm looking for a bounty hunter, I'd probably hire this guy, to be completely honest. And with all of his abilities, Hunter's Mark, Forest Rage, Sniper, and Archer, I just knew he was never going to miss an arrow. I also added Dreadnought with Mountaineer, Long Reach, Rocky Payload, and Primal Maw, Alcremie with Misty Surge, Fluffy, Super Hot Goo, and Self-Sufficient, Magnezone with Electric Burst, Electro Surge, Multi-Headed, and Magnet Pull, and last but not least, our regular Alakazam with Mystic Power, Psychic Mind, Psychic Surge, and Magic Guard. At this point, I think we all know Wallace and Juan are going to be cooked, but they still wanted to fight anyway. No free gym badges for me. So let's win it fair and square by starting off with our Decidueye and Magnezone against their Volcanion and Keldeo. This actually goes head to head. We take down their Keldeo with Bramble Blast, they take out my Magnezone with Boiling Flame. Next up was Copperajah, a very weird water type, but I did not care about the elephant and brought in Dreadnought to double up on Volcanion and proceeded to bury it under its shell. Next up was Dondozo, and with one more shot of my Decidueye's arrow, it would also go down, but Copperajah would catch him off guard and take out the sniper. But with one more well-placed shot of Aura Sphere, Copperajah would also go down, but the fight isn't over yet, as there's a second stage to the battle where they get 4 more Pokemon while mine don't get healed. Here they start off with a new form of Mega Blastoise and a Goodra, but I just used Thunderbolt and that one was already out of here. My turtle also bit her slimy dragon, but ended up getting one-shotted by Dragon Pulse after. So I brought in Grimmsnarl and they sent out their Tauros. And unfortunately, this thing ended up being faster than my Alakazam and wave crashed right into it, which bent all of its spoons and sent him back to the cutlery section. Grimmsnarl then avenged his teammate with a Play Rough though, which meant we could bring in Alcremie safely. Now that it's 2 against 1, the fight was basically over as I just had to click one more Play Rough on Grudra and one more Sucker Punch on the last Pokemon Bascule Legion to win the battle. Now that we have our gym badge, I take one last walk with May to Victory Road where we won't see each other anymore until we become champion. So I scoured around the region to create a team that could take on the final challenge before we would take on the Elite Four, the battle with Wally in Victory Road. For it, I used my new Mega Kingdra with Surge Surfer, Transistor, Super Scope, and Multiscale, Oricorio with Prankster, Color Spectrum, Aerialist, and Serene Grace. Then one of the most broken rock and roll Pokemon ever, Skeledirge, with Banshee, Hellblaze, Flaming Soul, and Amplifier as its abilities. This turns him into a boombox of fire. On top of this, we also had Scizor, Machamp, and Goodra joining us for the fight against Wally. So let's get started. He led off with a Hisuian Arcanine that wasn't the best matchup for my Skeledirge, so I swapped out into Machamp. Then I just used a Dream Punch to get all of my HP back and one-shotted it. Silvally would then return the favor to me with a Moonblast, but I had Skeledirge in the back, and all we needed was a single Boom Burst to make it collapse. Just like before, we'd then get one-shotted by his Latios, so I bring in my Goodra and buried it under a Draco Meteor. You know the drill by now, it's time for us to go down due to his Iron Valiant, but we counter back with Scizor's Bullet Punch to one-tap it too. The same goes for his Shaymin Skyform, and last up is his Urshifu, who takes 2 Bullet Punches and retaliates by taking my Scizor to the curb. Then I ordered my Oricorio to use Esper Waltz, and with Wally's dreams crushed, we were home free to go and explore Victory Road, which is by far the biggest hurdle in the entirety of Elite Redux. Trainer after trainer, with competitive team after competitive team, and no way for you to return to the Pokemon Center. They all use legendaries, mythicals, and megas against you, so I had to swap team nearly every single battle. But if you manage to push through, you'll reach the Empire of Giants, the Pokemon League. And once I arrived there, I knew I needed to build my favorite Mega Pokemon team. So I ended up going with the regional form of Arcanine, a grass fire type with Scare, Raw Wood, Stench, and Flame Body. I also called up the ace of my last Pokemon Elite Redux video, Garchomp. This water ghost type will surely spread the competition's cheeks with Haunting Frenzy, Keen Edge, Hyper Aggressive, and Soul Eater. This video would not be complete with the strongest Mega Evolution I found in this video, Alakazam. I knew I had to bring some muscle as well, so my boy Swampert also joined the team. In the end, I needed even more power, so I brought one of my strongest Pokemon, Ursaluna, with me too. And just to add some coverage and shed some light on a Pokemon I didn't really use all that much, I also brought in Magnezone. I knew these homies could succeed and become champion of Elite Redux, so let's dive nose first into Sydney. I led off with my Ursaluna against his Hisuian Samurott, immediately tanked a hit and then countered back with a Hammer Arm to kill. The turn after, his Iron Googalis easily killed me with Dark Pulse, so I needed to use Magnezone with its priority Thunderclap to shock it away. Scrafster then comes in and whacks me with its club, which broke Magnezone's whole motherboard, so I had to bring in Alakazam and kill it with Aura Sphere. The same went for the regional form of Azelf, which is a Dark Fairy type that dies to 2 of them. For Arbok, I brought out Mega Swampert, who used it like a skipping rope and killed it with Jet Punch. Last but not least was regional Frostlass, who was so weak defensively that it could also not withstand a single hit. Sydney was quite easy. Let's move on to the second one, Phoebe, to see if she can put up more of a fight. Yeah, I don't think so either. Definitely not when Alakazam was one-shotting Sinistcha, Aegislash, and Golurk super easily. Yes, we would get taken out by her Mega G-Max Gengar, but we still had Garchomp, who could use Last Respects and Triple Dive to take it, Blacephalon, and finally Basculegion out as well, winning me probably the easiest Elite Four member battle we'll ever have. I was just glad to see that Glacia was ready to put up way more of a fight, starting off with her Empoleon. Although this fiery bird didn't succeed in protecting its egg, as 2 of my Arcanine's Earthquakes took it down, but it did set up an Aurora Veil, so now her team members are going to be way harder to kill. Definitely when she starts throwing out things like Curan White, who tanks an Earthquake like it just got hit with a piece of bubblegum. And yes, it also did incinerate my Fire-type dog. But I took revenge with Ursaluna's Headlong Rush, which was so strong that it ended up bringing it down to red HP, and once the Life Orb damage got down to the Kyurem, we saw both of our giants fall in the same turn. Then I brought in Alakazam, and that's when the party was over. We used Aura Sphere to take down Blizzard Maw, the past form of Glalie, used Dark Pulse to take on Jinx's evolution Sopranize, and used an Aura Sphere combined with a priority Night Daze to take care of her Mega Dewgong. Her final Pokemon was Ice-Q, and while it was able to take me down with an Ice Shard, all I had to do was bring in Magnezone and hit 2 Parabolic Charges to finish off Glacia and step foot into the Dragon Master Drake's room. The captain of many ships is of course going to lead off with a water type of his own, Walking Wake, which was not a great matchup for my Arcanine, but we were able to hit a Giga Impact before dying to a Hydro Steam. Then I brought in Garchomp and chopped it in half. I tried to do the same to Regidrago, but that didn't end up happening, and we got served up a nasty Dragon Pulse, which one-shot me from full health. Alakazam then came in and did the heavy lifting once more, taking this thing down with a Night Daze, using a Freezy Glare to give the side-eye to Machamp, busted up his Black Kyurem with Aura Sphere and Night Daze as well, and finally inflicted some major damage on Fuji Flup with Night Daze. From there on out, Alakazam's rampage was over, but Magnezone could deliver the final hit with Thunderclap. Now with the Elite Four defeated, there is only one more trainer that stands in our way, and it's our good old friend, Steven Stone, who's been waiting to face me here all along, as I followed in his footsteps but was always one step behind. And now we have to overtake him, so let's see if our team has what it takes. I started off with Swampert against his Iron Treads, and just needed 2 Fists of Fury to knock out the elephant's wires. Next up was Melmetal, so I used my fist to split the ground underneath him, and once he fell into my self-made ravine, Melmetal was never seen again. He did the exact same thing to Magearna, but once his Mega Metagross hit the field, I knew my time was up. Psychokinetic Slam connected and sent me to my own grave, but I know my good boy Arcanine could melt it down with a Raging Fury. We hit another one on the legendary turtle Terrapagos, but in the end it also finished me off with an Earth Power, forcing me out into Magnezone, who could use one single Parabolic Charge, and because it hits 3 times, the voltage is enough to send it back to the Stellar Crown DLC. Last up was Goldengo, another awesome Steel type that would survive my Thunderclap with 1 HP and destroyed my Magnezone. But all we needed was one more priority move to end the battle, and what better Pokemon to do that than the one who carried us last time, Garchomp. Once the final blow was placed, we would be crowned champion of Pokemon Elite Redux with only Mega Pokemon, together with all of our best friends. But would I have called this a challenge? Not really. This run was honestly more like a ton of fun. I mean, I could use the most broken, coolest Pokemon in the world and just smash through an awesome game with amazing abilities and moves that I normally never get to use. And I would honestly highly recommend to do a challenge like this for yourself if you're looking to feel like the strongest trainer alive. I would also love to know what your favorite Mega Pokemon I used was in today's video. So if you're still watching, please leave that in the comments down below. And as always, I want to end off by thanking my membership and Patreon supporters for helping me out so much. And if you'd want to sign up yourself, there's a couple of benefits you get, like being named after Pokemon in videos and getting shoutouts like these. All you have to do is just go to the link in the description or click the join button on my channel, which would allow you to sign up with our awesome Swamp Squad. With that out of the way, I've been Zwiggo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.